Hey y'all. How are ya? Happy Monday. Sorry we're late. This is way harder. Switch your chairs. It is way harder to do this when we both have to be on than when it's just me. So, Brian's coming. We thought we had our kids. Somebody needed something. How are you? So good? Okay. So, tonight, I'm actually really excited about what we're talking about tonight. First of all, welcome to the Dreaming Table. If you found your way here, you're at our dining room table, which is super fun. You're actually on our dining room table, so there's that. It's Monday, February 25th. If you're watching live, if you're watching the recording, I would love to know that too. I'm Allison Dolphy. My husband Brian is coming shortly. Here he comes. Oh, you're telling me to sit in this chair. You got it. And we're excited to talk about all the things that we always talk about at our table. And tonight specifically, can you read that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Ooh, careful.
Oh, is it on right now? No, we're watching this, right?
What do you mean?
You're not recording through this?
No, yeah.
Okay, good. I was like, I just messed it
I
up.
was like, what do you mean? So the Dreaming Table was born out of an idea. Well, for one, we've been going live talking about business for a very long time, every single week. And it came to our attention that we wanted to talk about things that were not just business, but also had a lot to do with our business. And so tonight, well, first of all, we're always talking about dream chasing. We're always talking about living on purpose with intention and going after the things that really matter and rising up out of mediocrity because we hate mediocrity. We believe that we are called to live lives full of purpose and good works. So tonight we're going to talk about going to war with distractions. I feel like you're really distracted.
What?
I thought you were doing that.
What?
Are
Okay,
you
guys.
distracted?
Yeah.
You are.
I was like, why is it taking her so long? I'm like, sitting there.
I was like,
That was supposed to be funny. Maybe y'all thought it was funny. I don't know.
it did take me a minute because I was like,
Well, in your head, you were probably thinking, like, why is he so distracted?
yeah. I was like, what is
Dude, get it together.
What is he doing?
Yeah.
Is anything on that mug? The hair.
Yeah, I was getting off.
That's good.
It's distracting me.
Is somebody crying? Yeah.
She's mad I shut her door.
Mm-hmm.
These are real life distractions now, people.
Real distractions. Like we didn't stay.
We're going to talk about how to cut distractions out of your life.
Yeah.
How do you do that when it's a 3-year-old?
You can't. You can't do that.
All right, then I'll be right back.
If you leave her door open, she'll fall asleep.
All right.
Because distractions are real. We 100% believe that if you have a big goal and you have one of those like big God-sized, we're going to do this thing goals, that so many times the devil is after you to keep you distracted so that that thing doesn't actually happen. So we're going to talk about how you go to war against distractions tonight and how you claim back your purpose and your passion in life. Y'all ready for that? Okay, great. So tonight we were talking and we think there's really like two kinds of distractions, right? Internal and
External.
Good, babe. It's good.
Is that a test or
No,
you couldn't think of it?
No, it wasn't a test, but I was hoping you would just like
Yeah.
we practiced
Internal and
external. So tonight we're talking about external distractions and giving you some tools for how to, for one, identify what they are, but then two, also how you cut them out of your life. Because yeah, it's so vital that we eliminate distractions.
Yes.
So we're kind of working towards a big dream and a big goal, right? Is that
I feel like I need to.
I just thought I wanted to talk to you a little. Okay, you're just getting weird.
Sorry, I'm frisky tonight. Sorry, guys.
It got weird. Oh my.
Not like that. I mean,
well, that's what it sounded like.
Not like tinkering, but.
Oh yes. Oh, by the way, if you watched us last week, I feel like we really know each other now.
Yeah.
I feel like we really know each other now. And if you didn't watch, we talked about sex. We talked about sex the week before.
Twice.
Too.
We thought about going into a week 3. I'll be honest. We did think about it, but we didn't. We'll save that for another time.
Save for another time. Tonight, though, we're going to talk about going to war with distractions.
Yep.
So let's talk about, like, what would you consider some of the, okay, well, first of all, we're on our way towards a big dream, big goal, big God-sized thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
And lately, this topic kind of came up because we had the discussion that I was like, we're kind of distracted.
Yeah.
You know? What would you say are some of the biggest external distractions, at least that we've experienced as we walk towards our big dreams?
I think it comes in different seasons. So we were talking about this a little bit, but I think that a couple of years ago when my shaking the table.
Yeah. Those biceps stop.
It's not moving. I think a couple of years ago when we were maybe not leaning into our faith as much as we are, almost anything got us distracted. Like we would get distracted by the simplest things. Little things phased us, you know, budget things that we hadn't planned on, kids getting sick, a car breaking down, anything that messed with our time or with our money really messed with us.
Yeah.
Because we didn't really know what we were working toward or know where we were going.
That's true.
In the last year or maybe 2, I feel like it's a lot more, we get distracted from the big dream with smaller dreams.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we have a couple of just huge like big, hairy, audacious goals that we know that we're called to do, and we know that we're like
on our way towards. Yeah.
But then other things pop up here and there. You know, we've had a couple opportunities to help with some other things and to bless people in a certain way or to do something. And even though those things are all good and they're always blessed, I feel when you step back and look at certain things, sometimes it slows you down going toward the bigger goal or the bigger dream.
Yeah. And I don't think necessarily that like small dreams along the way are bad. And I don't think that they're not also fruitful, but I think sometimes, when you kind of set your soul and your heart on something that you're really working towards, you have to be more cautious of what you let become a goal and what you let become like another dream too. So.
And I do think we talk about this a lot, and this is not an original that we came up with. I think maybe our pastor, excuse me, at our church or someone he heard it from or something, but he basically said when the devil can't make you bad, he'll make you distracted.
Or make you
busy. And sometimes our distraction comes in the way of busyness or comes in the way of an opportunity that we think we need to lean into, but we really, when we measure what we're doing against our current goals and calling and messaging and all of those things, sometimes it's hard to make those decisions because you don't know. I mean, you guys probably know sometimes there's opportunities that pop up to really help in a certain area or bless somebody or something. And even though immediately it might hurt your long-term goal, you feel like that opportunity has been put in front of you for a reason, right? Like we talk all the time about if, you know, you feel like God's opened up a door, you should probably walk into it. So we are going to talk a little bit tonight about maybe how to discern from what God's actually putting on your heart to do, and then the things that you might need to clean up in certain areas of your life to really walk into those as well as you can.
Something you said made me think of that quote, how we spend our days is how we spend our life.
Right.
And in the middle of life, like I think about my days now, like a lot of my days are spent feeding people and cleaning up and feeding people again and cleaning up and feeding people again and cleaning up.
But be careful what you ask for. Because a few years ago, you were like, my only goal is just to feed people in this house.
Yep.
When we were looking at this house, we've been in this house 5 years now. We really thought in the last year or less that this wasn't the house. We still don't know if it's the house or not. But what we really feel called to right now is as long as we're in this house, we're going to feed people in this house. And we're going to have people around this table. And we're going to have just good kingdom building conversations with people. And But it's funny, when we first looked at this house, Allie was like, oh my gosh, this is the house that we can have 20 people and we can feed them and we can make people feel better than when they walk in the door, when they leave. And so anyway, it's just funny. Be careful what you ask for, because it might come in a different way than you wanted or expected. It's always blessed though, and it's always even better than we can imagine. But
I like what Erica just said. She said, when I was younger at youth revival, the pastor said busy meant being under Satan's yoke.
ooh,
That's so good.
that's really good.
It's
That's
really
like
good.
Southern Baptist right there.
That's real. But it's so good. And
Yeah.
you know how when you ask people how they are and they say busy?
Oh, I did the smoke thing.
You have
Sorry, guys.
got
I know
to
that's really loud. Hey, I'm aware of it, though. I think that's the first time I did it.
Yeah, you know how whenever, what was I saying? I lost my train
Busy
of
under
thought.
Satan's yoke. How
Distracted.
sometimes
Oh, when you ask people how they are, they say, just busy. Just
I'm
busy.
good, just busy,
Just busy.
super busy.
And I know that's just like something we say. I hate that. Like, I hate that. Why are we all so busy that that's all we can say when someone asks
But
us
we
how
live
we
in
are?
a world that it's not. It's almost more acceptable to be busy than not.
I know.
I mean, for example, so Allie and I are really, since the beginning of the year, since like the second week of the year, we've been Sabbathing on Sundays. And we listened to an incredible podcast about it. Go ahead.
I have no idea what you're going to say.
Oh, I'm yawning. I'm really sorry, guys. I'm not tired. I'm fired up. But we just really decided to, I mean, Sabbathing is a command from God. And you can say it's Old Testament or not. It's just something that we started to believe that we really need to have a day of rest. So call it whatever you want. It doesn't even have to be a Christian thing, but just having a day of rest. And it's hard at first because we are busy all the time. And Allie, even, I think it was maybe the first or second time we did it, by about 1 p.m, she came and sat on the couch and she's like, I don't know what to do. I was like, what do you mean, babe? Because we don't do electronics. I mean, we might watch a movie or something with the kids, but we don't do social media, which took a few weeks to get good at.
Mm-hmm.
We don't work. We don't. We can read. We can read our Bibles. We can read. If you're reading a fiction book or
There's
something.
no rules. The rules.
Yeah, there's no. It's just our rules, but stuff that take away from being here and being together as a family. And about halfway through the first day, she was like, I don't know what to do, because she has a busy body, and in a family of 6 people, 4 kids, there's always stuff to do. There's always cleaning up to do. There's always something to do. And so to not do that was so hard. But what we found over the last 4 or 5 weeks is we get so much more done in the other 6 days if we truly take a day of rest. Now, that's our thing. Obviously, it doesn't have to be your thing. But I say all that to say, when I've tried to explain it to some of my friends, that Sunday is like our day of rest, they're like, do what? I'm like, yeah, we don't do anything. Like, we only do things that bring us like joy, and we hang out as a family, and we can read our Bibles, but we don't get on social media. We don't, email, we don't message, we don't do any of that stuff. And they're like, that's ridiculous. I'm like, well, it's just what we do. Like, and they're like, well, why do you need that? Like, you work from home, you all have this great life. Like, why do you need? And so it's just the conception of, or the misconception maybe people have of what our lives look like sometimes might deter that thought. But it's just really important, we feel like, to not be busy. But in our world, busy is the norm. And often if people aren't busy, they feel like something's wrong.
So let's talk about some other, let's talk about some other external distractions that we have to go to war with if we want to, what I would say, go to the next level. Like, whether it's the next level in your dreams, like of what you want to accomplish, it's the next level in your marriage, it's the next level in your faith, whatever it might be. What are some of those things that we may have to cut out and eliminate that have become distracting to us?
That's good.
It's real delayed. You can't even look at that.
Hopefully they're seeing all this.
I can see it right there. It's fine.
Oh, was that from earlier? Okay.
This is the comments that are actually happening right now. You can't look at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what'd you ask? Because I was trying to figure out why that was that
It
way.
was so distracting.
Well, but for good reason. I just want to make sure y'all could hear us.
No, they can't. It's just so distracted. I mean, it's so delayed. I asked you, okay, if you want to take things to the next level, whether it's in your faith, in your goals, in your marriage, with your family, whatever that next level looks like to you, what are some of those external distractions that we may have to cut out?
Man, this right there.
Oh my gosh, I know. I'm starting a conversation.
I'm kidding.
I'm gonna punch you tonight.
So, man. So here's what I would say. I think that show me where you spend your time, and I'll show you where your heart is, right? That's kind of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can say all you want that, you know, this is what I care about, and this is what I care about, and this is what I care about. But if the way you spend your time and money don't reflect that, then you really need to do a self-check and figure out the things you actually care about or the things you put on the pedestal. So
I read some stat the other day, you know, that like since you have the screen time thing now, how I read some statistic that said like the amount of time the average person spends on their phone in a day, like screen time, not like talking on your phone, screen time. In that amount of time, you can write a book in, I can't remember if it was a month or a year. It doesn't actually matter, regardless, whatever the stat was. I was telling him I read this.
How many books?
You could write a book. I can't remember if it was in a month or a year.
I'll bet it's a month.
I think it was a month. That's why I was like so astounded. Like, wait, what? Like the average amount of time people spend on their phone, like on screen time, is like 4.5 hours a day or something.
Oh, but it's more than that.
I don't know. But whatever it was like if you weren't on your phone during that time, you could write a book in that amount of time. And I was like, oh, freaking crap. Like, right? So crazy. So that just goes to show you, like, I know some of it's necessary.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. But
I mean, yes.
But think back. If you're over the age of 30 or 35, before smartphones, so I think the iPhone came out in 2009.
I have no idea.
So think about before that, you still were connected with your friends. You still ran your business or a business.
Yeah.
You still were connected.
Yeah.
It might have looked a little different, but we've created a necessary evil in our life where we now have this thing that we have to be attached to because we feel disconnected. When realistically, those connections can be built outside of social media in a different way.
Yeah, and granted, like so many people's businesses and lives, so many things look different because of social media and the internet and all the things.
Yeah, we'll never tell you it's completely a bad thing. There's a lot of really good things that can come from it and that are coming from it constantly.
Yeah.
But like anything in life, there has to be
boundaries,
rules. There has to be boundaries. There has to be margin. And I think social media is a big thing. Guys, for a living, basically, we coach people in business and we talk to people constantly. We're constantly trying to help people streamline and do better in their business. And I don't know how many times I've heard people say, I have to be on social media 4 or 5 hours a day because I have to know what my people are doing and I have to keep them positive and I have to do this and I have to do that. I will never be a believer that you have to be on social media 4 or 5 hours a day to be successful, unless
that's your job.
That's your job. Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Unless you're a social media developer or you're a
content writer,
you're an information gatherer or something like that. But the way we do our business, and we've been in seasons where we spent way too much time on social media because we had an excuse, right? Like we're checking in on our people, we're seeing what's going on.
But the problem is when you don't have hard boundaries in place. So one of the things I realized, I do this a lot. Pretend like you're at the table. This is what I would actually say to you. So when we don't have those boundaries in place with social media, we become less efficient. So if we don't say, okay, yes, I'm going to get on to post and I'm setting a timer for however long, right? Then we become so inefficient at what we're doing or what we think we're doing online that it becomes irrelevant and not helpful anymore. It's kind of like when there's people that have who I would say one of the distractions in their lives towards them living in greater purpose or in great, like at their next level is that they're excessively working. Mm-hmm. And when we excessively work, we become less productive and we actually become less effective. There's all these studies that show that after a certain amount of hours in a week, that the more hours that you spend don't actually make you any more productive.
Right.
So you can work an 80-hour work week, but people max out at like 37 hours a week or
Right.
something, like really. And so when you try to cram more in, you're not actually making a difference. And it's the same. And this is something I really relate to, working from home and being my own boss, right? If I don't have boundaries in place and I'm not strict on those boundaries, I can work forever. Like I can work all day long, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's always something else to do. There's always someone else to meet or something else. Like you could work all day long.
Right.
But when you start to put boundaries in place, whether it's with social media or with your work hours or whatever it looks like, then what it does is it pushes you into being more efficient and more effective. And if we want to grow better businesses, we want to grow better families, we want to grow into more purpose, we have to learn how to be effective and efficient.
Yep.
So.
And part of those studies is whenever you know you have the flexibility of working late into the night or things like that,
yeah,
you don't get as much good out of the daily work hours where you can actually spend your time because you automatically default to knowing you can do it later. But then that's just a perpetual cycle where you're like, oh, well, I can get on social media right now. It's not a big deal. And then later, well, I can do that later. I can do it tomorrow. I'll get on. I can do it later. I can go to coffee with my friend, something I didn't need to do, but I'll just do it. It's fine. Or I can do that thing at the school or do this or do that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden a month goes by and all you have is a big basket of excuses as to why you haven't done the things you needed to do. Or if you knew you had work hours or you knew you had these boundaries, you would get more done than you would in 80 hours and 40.
Absolutely. What are some other, actually that was like on the end of my list, that is excessive work and excessive social media, those distractions that we have to really fight to cut out of our lives. What are some other things that you think, if we want to go next level, we might have to cut out?
I think that one thing that happens more often than we even realize is that the people we surround ourselves with have so much to do with the way we live our lives, the way we run our business, the way we raise our kids, the way we treat our spouse, more than we ever understood or realized. And that can be a huge distraction / negative / all the wrong things.
Yeah.
If you're not really careful about who you spend your time with.
Yeah. And it's hard. Okay. So especially like, obviously we're Christians and we try to live like Jesus, who Jesus loved people. And yes, we want to love people, but also the people that we put closest to us, we have to make sure that they're the right people. Just like Jesus made sure that the people he put closest to him were the right people. I also heard something the other day, and I brought this up to Brian like 15 times because I've never heard anybody say this. Jesse Itzler, tell them who Jesse Itzler is.
So Jesse Itzler created, what was the company? His wife created Spanx.
Yes, his wife.
He created
a
bunch of .coms. He has sold, one of them's a huge one.
You don't have to tell all the details.
His name's Jesse Itzler.
Mega successful.
Mega successful.
Anybody knows what he's like known for.
But I think one of today's real outside of the box thinkers, as far as some of the things he's done in business.
And as what he thinks is successful.
Right. And so for example, he got really into extreme sports like extreme running, 100-mile ultra marathons, things like that. And he was actually in a group of 4 guys that were rotating, running a marathon each in this ultra marathon, which I think was collectively 4 marathons together. It was over 100 miles. And he saw this guy that was doing the thing by himself. No joke, by himself. And he was so intrigued as to this man's level of training. The guy actually passed him on his leg of his marathon. This guy passed him. It was on this guy's 3rd leg. And he was so intrigued by the guy's ability to push through boundaries that hardly anyone in the world could physically do, that he went up to him afterward and tried to figure out his name. And the guy wouldn't give him his name. The guy was ignoring him. In the meantime, the guy actually broke both of his feet on the run. His bones in his feet actually broke. And so he did the last 20 miles on broken feet. Anyway, so Jesse found out all this. Well, he ends up finding out he's a Navy SEAL from California. Jesse basically starts stalking him before there was social media, figures out where he lives, calls him, and says, I'm not going to take no for an answer. You're going to come train me for a month. I just want to know what you do and how you do it. And so he just does some really crazy off-the-wall things. And finally, the guy, he wouldn't take no for an answer. And the guy said, fine, I'll do it, but you have to do every single thing I say. And he was like, all right, fine. And it included things like running in 10-degree weather and 2 feet of snow in shorts and a t-shirt in the middle of New York in winter. I mean, doing all these crazy things. But he's just a real outside the box thinker.
So he wrote a book
he wrote a book called Living with a Seal.
That whole story is in the book Living with a Seal.
Any of you guys watching it, if you're into like it motivated me so much. I started getting up every morning and working out just from reading this book. It motivated me so much. So he's just an incredible outside the box thinker.
Anyways, I follow him on social media, and the other day he posted something that said, you know how there's that saying like that you want to surround yourself with like-minded people? And he was like, that's a crock of crap. You want to surround yourself with people who don't think like you, who think bigger than you, who have done things greater than you, who you can look at and say, okay, who will challenge the way that you think. And he was even saying, like, you don't want to surround yourself with people that think just like you, because then how are you being challenged, right? Yeah. How are you growing through that? You're not. Is it important to have people around us that are like us? Yes. But we also have to seek out people that are ahead of us. We have to scrap our way into people's lives who are doing the thing, who have already done the thing that we want to do, right? And to me, I just keep saying that. I'm like, yes, I don't even want to be around people who think like me. I want to be around people that think 10 times bigger than me. I want to be around people that are like thinking way, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, he was fascinated by monks. So monks live these very solitude lives.
Oh, he wrote another book about that.
Yeah. And he went and lived with monks for like a month or something.
Yeah, he's great.
So he just went and basically made a donation and was like, I'm living with you guys for a month, take it or leave it. And they're not, I think he made a joke about how they're not, they don't believe in violence. So he was like, what you gonna do about it? And they were like, get your bedroll and your robe, come with us. And so anyway, he's a really out of the box thinker, but some of the things he says just really make you think. And you just think like, yeah, that's so true. Like when you surround yourself with like-minded people, then you're going to get the same thing every day.
Yeah.
Or if you surround yourself with people that are thinking far bigger than you, or even thinking in ways that you never did,
right,
then you get stretched.
Challenging you, yes.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. So here's the biggest issue with that, right, is we have our safe, comfortable people. We have the people that we have ended up with, right, that feel like, okay, but I can't get rid of my family. I know you can't. I'm not saying that. But I am saying, where are you going to spend the bulk of your time? Right? Where are you going to spend, who are you going to spend the bulk of your time with?
Yeah.
We had to make some hard decisions about some people. Like when we decided, okay, we're trying to do this, like we're trying to do this bigger thing. And we kind of felt like for a season that people around us were not
as into it. Yeah.
And well, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, just like almost like, oh, that's cute. Like, y'all are cute. Like, you know.
Well, like,
you know what I mean?
Or why? Like, why do you guys?
Why? Why do you want to do that? Because I don't know. Because we feel to it, right?
So that leads me well into our next point of all this. The people you surround yourself with, you're going to become a part of what you're surrounding yourself with. So, you know, like C.S. Lewis said, if you're surrounding yourself with people that are doing bigger things, you're going to start to do bigger things.
Mm-hmm.
And when we really started to make a decision to put ourselves around the people and be inspired by the people that are doing things that people said they couldn't, or people said that's not possible, or, you know, people that were really leaning into their calling in a way that just seemed irrational almost, but in a big God kind of way.
Yeah.
Then it really started to change the way that we looked at some of the way we are around people that don't think that way.
Yeah.
And so, and there's a lot of people. Now, here's the thing. A lot of these people are incredible people in their own right, but a lot of people's dreams don't line up exactly with ours. And so by surrounding yourselves with people that your dreams don't line up, when you go to talk to them about this big dream and they're like, oh yeah, that's cute, and they just move on, that's not inspiring you. That's not pushing you. That's not.
And it's not even that they have to have the same dream attitude.
No,
just
but
that
we
they have
just
the same mindset.
We just
right?
want to be around people that say, we had somebody pretty recently at church come up to us and they watched some of our stuff and they just said, hey, I see what you guys are doing and it's incredible and it's inspiring. And I hope you just keep jumping off into things that you can't do by yourself because you're just the only way it's going to happen is with God, and that's inspiring, and I think it's amazing. And when you hear things like that, and you're like, okay, this is what we're supposed to be doing. We don't know the answers half the time. We dream up some of these dreams, and we think, all right, God, there's no way we can do this on our own, so you're going to have to show up and show off. And sometimes he does, and sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes it's just a way to show us there's something else that maybe we're supposed to be doing. But those are the kind of people, that's the kind of feedback I want to get. I want to have people question, like, well, what did you do today to work toward that dream? As opposed to, why are you dreaming that dream? Right. So that's the kind of thing you have to be very careful about. And then there's extremes as well. Like we were talking about it earlier today, you've got to cut free from the negative, from the people that are in your life, that you let speak into your life, that are constantly negative. The other day, Addie and I were on our way to church, of all places, and there was a point in the car where she said something kind of negative, and I didn't tell her I was going to do it, but I just started answering every question with negativity. So we passed by this little farm that's kind of by our house, and they've got llamas, and she said something about, oh my gosh, look at the llamas. And I was like, llamas are the ugliest, most useless creature on the planet. And she was like, llamas are beautiful. And I was like, really? That is not beautiful. Their teeth are all sticking out. Their hair's all jacked up. Like, they're useless. Well, people get fur off of them. I was like, yeah, you can only shear a llama once a year. You can shear a sheep twice. I was like, get sheep. They eat less. It's more efficient. And she was like, well, I don't know. I just never thought of it like that. And then she said a couple other things, and I just negative. So then all of a sudden she's all negged out thinking her dad's this horrible person. So I stopped and I was like, babe, you see what I just did? And she was like, well, what? Besides crush my soul? She didn't say that, but I go, do you see how negativity and people that speak negativity around the things that you seemingly like or enjoy, how it just brings you down? And she was like, yeah, it did. And I go, so I'm not telling you that I'm not saying that you're around those people and you need to shed yourself of it, but that's the kind of stuff you hear conversation going that direction. You've got to just take that mental note, like, this is not someone that I need to be spending my emotional margin of time with.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just curious, like, how many of you would say, if I sort of like looked around at the people that I spend the most time with, that if I looked at them as a collective whole, that I would say, yeah, that's what I want to be like. Yes, that's how I want to act. Would you say that? Or would you say, yeah, actually, no. Like, the people that I spend the most amount of time with, I don't want to be anything like. Which one is it? It's kind of gut-wrenching to think about that we've accidentally fallen into the wrong groups at times. Yeah. And I think everybody has at some point in your life, right? That you have found yourself in a group of people that you're like, how did I get here? And who are these people? And is this what I want my life to look like?
And it doesn't mean those people are like that all the time. And we have friends that are really great, really positive, but then they're the people that aren't speaking life into you in the moments when you need it the most. They're the ones that are saying, yeah, you should feel that way. That stinks that happened. Or, so it comes and goes. And I think it's really hard to break free from some of those that.
They didn't answer my questions. They didn't answer my question.
But I think it's really free. It's hard to break free sometimes for those ones that most of the time they're great, but then sometimes in the times you need them the most, they're no help. And so those are things that you really got to watch for. And if nothing else, maybe make a list. Like, take a week, take a couple weeks, make a list of all the people that you have conversation with on a pretty regular basis, and figure out which of those people are truly speaking life into you and building you up, and which ones you're walking away from not feeling as good as you were when you started the conversation. And that's one thing we say a lot. We measure when you walk away from a conversation with someone, if you feel better about yourself, better about what you're doing, more driven to do something that maybe you weren't when you walked into the conversation, those are the kinds of people that you want to be around, the people that are constantly speaking life, challenging you, pushing you toward what you're supposed to do, as opposed to the people that are basically giving you permission to be mediocre. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So other than people,
I'm going to answer a couple of questions real fast. So what if you would say, Christy actually said, what do I do if I don't have people around me? You have to fight for and find the right people. So I actually, when we were in a season, we have 4 kids. Now at the time we had 2, and we were just in this season where I needed the right nanny in our home to help us so I could run my business and not feel like I was neglecting my kids. And I had searched and asked around and all the things. And someone much wiser than me said to me, have you prayed about the right person? It's like, well, no, maybe that's a great start. And that day I started praying that God would send me the right person. And lo and behold, the right person walked into our lives. Amy Gillett, Amy Niles at the time, and literally not only transformed my kids' lives and not only got to mentor and pour into my kids, but also is one of the people that I would want to spend time with, that I want to be around, right? So some of it is seeking people out, and I think it's a constant ebb and flow. It has been for us. And I think as we begin to take more steps towards our bigger goals, it's almost like, I told Brian the other day, I'm like, do you feel like we've alienated ourselves from some people? And the answer is yes, kind of.
Yeah.
That we don't fit in as well with groups of people that we used to. And so we've had to, and we, for one, had to be okay with that. But then we've also had to seek out other people.
Yeah.
And then you have to fight for those people. And you have to know that they're willing to fight for you too. Actually, a couple that we've gotten to know really well pretty recently, it's not easy to be in community. It's something you have to intentionally fight for. And the four of us agreed, okay, we need this and we're willing to fight for it. And so I was supposed to tell her a day last week when we could hang out, and I didn't. And so she texted me like, hey, remember,
you gotta fight.
I'm like, okay, yes, we do.
Yeah.
So I think it's being prayerful and mindful about asking for the right people to come into your life. And then I think the other part is being aware.
Yeah.
I think it's so easy for us to be unaware now of people around us. And when you really start to seek people out and you're aware and watching and looking and listening, I truly believe that the right people get put in our lives.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And praying for what you need. I think that, like Allie was talking about earlier with our nanny situation, sometimes we only go to God with the big stuff. And as big of a deal as we know that this is, until you have it, you might not understand what a need that it would fill in your life. And I mean, there's multiple times where Jesus talks about the people that you put yourselves around and the situations you put yourselves in. And it's a really big deal. And I think that it's a big deal because it's going to affect who you become, who your family becomes, your legacy, all of those things. And so just start praying for that. Start praying for wisdom, for discernment to make you aware of the situations you should and shouldn't be in, the people you should and shouldn't be around. And then quit listening to your earthly excuses like, well, you know, they're my next door neighbor, or, you know, I'm related to them through a third cousin, or I see her every other week, you know, so I should just learn to deal with it, or whatever it might be. Like, you have a choice. You get to hang around with who you want to hang around and let speak into your life who you allow to speak into your life. And sometimes those choices are hard, but they really matter. Sometimes the decisions that matter the most are the hardest to make. So
I also think about if I were to grab up a handful of the people that I would say right now are my go-to people. If like that I were to say, these are the people right now that if I needed someone to understand or like to go to and say, this really sucks, or this, every single one of them came through an uncomfortable situation for me. Came through me having to be vulnerable, me having to be uncomfortable. A couple of them I met at a mastermind retreat that I went to where I knew not a single soul. Signed up because I felt like I needed to go. I needed something different. And these women that I met, that I knew not a one of them before, what happened that week, the couple days, was so transformational for me that literally there's some of them, if I think about them right now, it brings tears to my eyes because of what they've done for me.
Yeah.
The confidence they've given me, the affirmation that they've given me, and the fact that I know that they understand me. Yeah. But it was a scary, scary thing for me to do.
Yeah, that's not, I mean, Allie going to something that she doesn't know people is her biggest nightmare.
Pretty much.
Like when she told me, she was like, "Hey, I feel like let's go to this thing," and I was like, so I asked all the husband questions, right? Like, when is it? How much is it? Do we have childcare? What's the thing? And when I asked who she knew that was going, she's like, "I don't know anybody." Like, excuse me, what? Where's my wife? And then she goes, "No, I really don't." And I go, "That's your biggest nightmare." She's like, "I know, but I feel like I'm supposed to go."
But it was transformational for me, for sure. And then I think about other people that right now are kind of, some of them actually are people who have been at this table, which also came from a very, it was a thing, us stepping out in chance, feeling like God was saying, you need to bring people in your home. Okay. And do what? And say what? Like, it was something I pushed so hard against for so long. And the fruit that has come out of that is so much more than I ever expected it to. And so those people, I know that I could go to them and say just about anything and they would totally understand me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of them. So it's things like that. I think we want to be able to say, we're going to find the right people. They're just going to come to us. I actually think you're going to have to do something that makes you feel nervous. I think you're going to have to do something that makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Which is a great lead into the next part. Some of the biggest distractions are the things that keep you comfortable. Now, this isn't just meaning you've got a big, comfortable couch. This is sometimes your routine. A lot of us get into this routine where at night after a certain time, we turn on Netflix or we get on social media or we watch, the story line or whatever it's called on Facebook or
stories.
Is it just Facebook stories? Why do you call it like the storyline?
That's cute. Well, when you say that, it makes me think of Don Miller.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know, should we call it something like that? But whatever it might be.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's what I was thought of it as. So, but sometimes our routine of the things we do and the excuses we have to do them. Well, I've worked really hard today, so now I deserve to eat ice cream and a Pop-Tart and watch Netflix, right? So whatever that might be, sometimes those are the things that keep us in a place that we necessarily don't want to be, but we're there. And so it's like, well, I might as well deal with it, right? Like we hear all the time, people say, well, this is just the hand I'm dealt. Well, is it? Or do you have a chance to change the cards a little bit? Mm-hmm. So sometimes the things and the stuff that the routines of things that we do on a regular basis keep us comfortable, and we're not always supposed to be comfortable.
I also think our stuff in general is a huge weight for a lot of people that keeps them right where they are and not being able to move forward. I think we have these big dreams sometimes and we have these big goals, but the reality is if we can't get our own crap together, like your literal crap, like the stuff.
Well, not literal crap.
Oh, yeah. Not like
literal stuff.
Yeah.
She doesn't know what literal means sometimes. We had this conversation with our daughter the other day. She would say literally about everything. She would say something about it was 1,000 feet tall. I'm like, really? She's like, literally. I'm like, babe, it's 12 feet tall. Well, it's literally like 1,000 feet. And I'm like, you don't know what literally means. Never mind. So
okay. So, anyways, your literal stuff. Your literal stuff.
Your stuff. Your junk. Stuff. The stuff around the house that you don't need and you couldn't afford.
That honestly keeps
but you got it anyway.
That keeps you busy. Right? It keeps you overly busy. When we have too much stuff, it keeps us busy, right? Cleaning all the things. It's not good. And then it also just weighs us down. Like we did, we read the Crazy Calamari book. Lucy was a baby.
Yeah, it was 2 years ago. And it took hold for a good 5 or 6 weeks.
3 years
ago.
Yep. It didn't just take hold. Transform something.
That's a big statement. That sounds like, that's like a postcard. It didn't just take hold. It transformed. That's big. Put it on a mug. But it did. I mean, the way that we viewed stuff, and the way that we viewed what we bring into our house, truly did change.
Changed, absolutely, and the things that we held on to changed. I think I used to have this, like, okay, but I'm going to need that, or like,
Or that's sentimental.
Or that's going to come back in style.
No, it's not.
It
and
might.
If it does, it'll be 30 years.
It might, but let's just not.
Yeah.
Let's just let it go.
Just let it go.
Doesn't bring you joy.
Let it go.
You let it go. It's a huge thing. And I think a lot of people's battle really begins in their home.
Absolutely.
With the stuff.
Yep.
So I don't know if you've seen the Netflix series, the KonMari. What's it? I don't even know what it's called. It's on Netflix. KonMari.
It's Maria Kondo.
Yeah.
Maria Kondo.
Anyways.
The something with tidying up.
That's what the book's called.
Yeah.
I did read the book though, and I will tell you, it really did change my mind on stuff. I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
We still haven't gotten to our sentimental, so that was 3 years ago, and that's like the very last step.
But it has helped so much in what we bring into our home.
Yeah.
So before we would just be like, oh, that looks cool, we'll buy that. But now we're like, does that bring us joy? Is that something that's going to last? Is it quality? You know. Yeah. So we mirror it against all those principles that we learned. It's been really good.
What about activities, babe?
That's a big one.
It is a big one.
It's a huge one.
I want to brag on you for a minute.
Okay.
My husband really loves sports. He has always loved sports. He grew up in a sports family. He was a great, incredible athlete. Why did you sigh?
Nice. I was.
Yes.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Well, you said great, and I was like, not just great. And then you added incredible, so I was like,
that's
there
better.
it is. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Anyway, he loves sports. He really loves football. His dad is a football coach and has been a football coach
still is a football coach. Yeah.
And you know what? This man used to love fantasy football. Like live, breathe, and die. Fantasy football.
I was a commissioner in 4 or 5 leagues. I was in 8 or 9 leagues. It was awesome.
Babe, when's the last time you were in fantasy football thing?
3 years.
3 years ago.
I'm not going to say that's why, but it was about 3 years ago when, like, our marriage really took a good turn, our family took a good turn, our business took a good turn.
I never really thought about that. I was just trying to brag on you because you.
I know I hadn't thought about it either, but now that we're saying it out loud, I'm like,
distraction.
Huh. Yeah.
So here's the thing.
But here was the thing about fantasy football, and girls that are married to men that love fantasy football, do not expect them to quit at cold turkey. And that's an unreal expectation. However, and you can mirror this against your own lives as well, because we know plenty of women as well that have things that they do on a regular basis that are maybe not fruitful to their families or to their marriage or to their children.
How should I say that?
I know. Okay. I wouldn't. I don't know why you're about to say that. But what I will say is, for me, fantasy football was a addiction to the competition that happened every week. So every week you're in, a different game with a different person, and their strategy and lineups and who's on the injured list and who's not, who's on the waiver wire and all this stuff. So it's basically like the game of Risk every week over and over again. And so you have, as men, we like to dominate things. We like to kill things, drag them home, feed our family, the whole thing, right? So it was a weekly way for me to express my competitiveness, have a chance to dominate something, or trash talk the entire time while I'm losing. And so it's a really fun way for men to kind of have this outlet to, do something that we're naturally made to kind of have in our lives, right? But it got to the point where I was doing it so often, like Thursday night football, Sunday all day, Monday night football. It was 3 days a week when I was home from work of being totally disconnected from my wife and my kids. But I had this excuse, right? Like, this is my thing. This is my only thing. And that was my excuse. Like, babe, you have, this group and this fun stuff you do with your girls and all that. And this is my only thing. And so she just let me do it. But I did finally realize one day, I just started thinking, I think in extremes all the time. And I think, 30 years from now, is this going to matter? I have a lot of that kind of deep thought stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, like for the last however many, 5, 6, 7 years, I've done this. And yeah, it's kept me close with some guys I used to know and some guys that I like and stuff like that. But is any of that going to matter in comparison to my wife and my kids, and our family and all of that? And I just realized one day that it wasn't. And so I told my wife before the season started, I'd already kind of gotten into some leagues and was already doing stuff. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to do it this year. She was like, seriously? Maybe, yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like it's a huge distraction. And I'm just not going to do it. So I told everybody, hey, I'm out. I'm not doing it this year. They all told me I was crazy and I'd be back next year. And excuse me again, good Lord. And I never looked back like that. I still love sports and I still love football. What it's done is it's made me more of a fan of my teams, OU, Dallas Cowboys, a couple others, instead of being a fan of the players, of every single person that I had on my team and all of that, and just the constant knowing or having to know what everybody was doing. And it changed. I mean, it changed a ton of things in our marriage, especially. I wasn't checked out on Thursday nights. I wasn't checked out on Sunday all day. I wasn't checked out on Monday nights. And I still am a huge advocate when I have friends that are still deep in all these leagues. I'm like, man, I know it's fun and all that, but you just don't realize what you're missing out on. And they still, most of them right now, I'm never quitting. And that's fine. To each his own. But for us, that was a huge distraction.
And it's like one of those things that takes away time and energy from something that, and I did not ask him to stop. I didn't, like, it was just him saying, I feel like I better use my time. I could do something better with my time. But
I think it was one of my bigger self-awareness moments as far as.
It's big of you, baby.
Huh?
It's big of you.
Well, I just think that, I mean, I'm pretty self-aware, but there are things, I do feel like I had excuses as to why I could keep doing it, but I really just looked at it like I probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
And I really did step off thinking, I'm going to do this for 1 year and I'm going to get back into it next year. And then I just didn't. We had a great year that year, and I loved being able to totally unplug on Sundays and just hang out with kids. And so, yeah, it was really great. It was great. I'm glad I did it.
But there's so many other activities. That's just an example. And here's the thing. Mostly everything that you're involved in, I would guess, is good in and of itself.
Talking to me or them?
Everybody.
Oh, okay.
Collectively, right? Like the things that we get involved in are good, but good is the enemy of great.
All right.
And so when we fill our lives with good things, what greatness actually comes out of it? Or what greatness do we actually get to give back to the world? I don't know that we do.
Yeah.
So activities can take the form of anything. Fantasy football, excessive fictional reading. Like, here's the deal. I love to read and I love fiction, but I also, there have to be limits. If I'm reading some really great novel, like, I'm not going to let myself read all afternoon on the couch while my kids could have my attention, right?
Right.
It's good and it's fine, but is there something better? Probably.
Well, and it's really easy, especially depending on what your work life looks like. It's really easy to say, well, this is my one thing. Like, yeah. I'm allowed to do it. It's my one thing. And it can cause, I mean, I'm probably speaking to some of you when I say it causes arguments. Like, your husband probably has his one thing. You might have your one thing. And you say, well, that's my one thing. And I'm sure there have been, raise your hand or give a thumbs up if you've had a conversation in the last month about, well, that's my one thing. Like, it's just this one thing. And so the problem is when you start to get called out in those things by other people, especially the people you love and care about the most, that's when you have to kind of, I think, check it a little bit and kind of put the mirror up and figure out if you're spending your time in the right ways doing it, and if it's actually fruitful to your life as a whole, or if it's really just fruitful to you or you think it is, but it's causing strife in other areas.
Mm. Yeah, that's good.
Another thing I want to say on activities, you have to really guard your time and the time that you allow your kids to be involved in things. So now, granted, we're only speaking to the people right now that have kids, but we see far too often in this world we live in. I was just actually talking to my mom and dad about this the other day, how when we were growing up, it was okay for like other people's parents to give rides to you to go to practice. Your parents didn't have to go to every practice. They didn't have to, be super involved in absolutely everything you did. But we live in this world now where most of the people we know go to every practice of their kids. They want to be super involved. They're on the email list from the coaches, so they know every little thing that's happening. And it's so hard to balance what you should and shouldn't be doing, because it's kind of the expectation, really.
I just had this exact conversation with my friend today, and you don't know that I had it.
Mm-hmm.
But I was on my way to take Addie to the barn, and she said something to me about how it's about to be fast pitch softball time and their world's about to be wrapped up in it. And I was like, look, I'm a horrible parent because the thought of all 4 of my kids being involved in something makes me want to lose my mind.
Well, and being at everything.
Yes. And so that's the conversation we had, is like, she was like, I drop her off at practice and then I go pick her up. Like, I don't sit there with all the other moms and like wait and gossip. I like go, and I'm like, see, but isn't that a weird expectation that there's this, like, if you're not there, then you're a bad parent, right? Or I don't know. It's just,
well, and it is, I mean, I think I know who you're talking about. And her husband and I had a conversation a couple of years ago about, we went to a practice, we were in town hanging out with them, and we went to a practice, and all the parents were like, hey, we don't usually, oh, it's not?
No.
Oh, and they were like, hey, we don't usually see you here, because they don't always go to the practices. And there's this other group of parents that go to every stinking practice. And what was funny, when we walked up to talk to these parents that I didn't know, he introduced me, and they immediately started talking crap on one of the coaches, because they were like, oh yeah, he's doing that thing again where he gets on to him about this one thing and the other. And it was just this gossipy, unhealthy. And so as we kind of walked away, he's like, that's why I don't come, because that's the conversations that are had constantly about all the things people are doing wrong, and I just can't deal with it. So it's funny, he walked away from it, not because he didn't want to support his kids, but because it was an unhealthy place to go. But I kind of said to him, even if it was healthy to come here, you probably don't need to be at every practice. Like, that's 10 hours a week that you could be at home with your wife and your other 2 daughters at the time. And that's probably the better place to be spending that time, because when your daughter's on the field practicing, she's not concerned about you being in the stands. Some kids might like their parents to be there for everything, but ultimately you're just as supportive, if not more, if you're at home with your other 2 daughters and your wife.
Well, and I think what happens sometimes, and listen, we're not saying if you go to every one of your kids' practices that that's bad. I'm just saying, as a parent, the expectation for that, for me, feels very unrealistic. Especially a working parent, like, who, like, and granted, I know when you stay home, you work too. I know all the things, but
here's what I'll tell you in our life, that it's actually come full circle. So our daughter rides horses. You guys probably know this. We've watched this for very long, and we rarely go to a lesson.
Yeah.
What it's done for her, though, there are a few parents that go to every single time their kids are up at the barn, and there's some kids that have gone as long as our daughter's ridden horses almost 5 years now. Our daughter is a boss around horses. She can do things. She can go out into a pasture full of crazy horses, throw bridles on half of them. I mean, she's 100 pounds and they're these 800-pound animals, and she can get them to do what she needs them to do and take control and bring 2 or 3 of them into the barn at the same time. Like, she's a boss around horses, but she didn't always have us there helping her. So a lot of things she had to figure out. Now she knows now so much more about horses than we ever did. She constantly is laughing at me when I refer to something about the wrong, it's the wrong thing I refer to, but it's given her this self-confidence in what she does up there, where she literally, like, I don't even stop the truck all the way sometimes when we get there. And she's like, all right, Dad, see you. I love you. See you in a couple hours.
But she's also had to learn how to communicate with adults.
Right.
Because Mom and Dad aren't there to run to. So she has to, and she'll call me sometimes like, Mom, this is what my trainer said. I'm like, well, you have to go talk to her.
Yeah.
Like, she's had to learn how to do things because we haven't always been there. Right. So I think
that we all, the age that I'm at and older than me.
I grew up in a dance studio. My mom was never there.
Yeah. And
I was teaching lessons, communicating with an adult.
We learned those skills growing up that in a lot of ways now, and we won't even get into electronics, how kids are connected socially and stuff like that. But I think that we learned a lot of those life skills growing up. I grew up in a wrestling room until I was in junior high or high school. And my dad was a wrestling coach for the high school, but he was never there when I was in Little League and junior high. But it served me really well because I had to communicate. If I needed to figure something out, I had to ask. I couldn't tell my dad or mom to go ask my coach. And I was laughing with a buddy of mine the other day. He's a headhunter for this big company. And he was telling me about all the kids that come in that are college-educated kids that come into an interview with their mom or dad. And he said it's probably 25 or 30% of the people that come into an interview. So and I was like, are you serious? And he goes, yeah, these kids. He goes, I had a mom one time demand she be in the interview because she convinced our girl outside that brings people in that sometimes he has trouble getting out what he's trying to express. And he said, so I sat there and almost laughed while I would ask him a question. And then she would say, honey, let me answer that for you because I know what you want to say, but I'm going to say it in the way that you would want to say it. And then she would say, and he finally said, ma'am, if you would like to interview, you can fill out an application, but I need to talk to your son. This was like a 23-year-old man that his mom came into the interview. And so what we've created, and this is an extreme, but what we've created is kids that if they can constantly look to us and rely on us in those situations, that we do them a disservice as they get older. And so now, granted, again, like she said, we're not saying that you guys going to your practices and supporting your kids is a bad thing. But I do think you need to mirror and really just do a check and say, okay, the 10 or 12 hours a week that I'm at this practice, could that be better served doing something with my spouse, with my other children, even at home or working or whatever it might be? But you need to really mirror that time, because that is a huge chunk of time. We have friends that are never out of a season. They have kids that, you know, do softball and then basketball and then volleyball and then track and then this and then that. And they're 5 nights a week living on the road somewhere, going to a practice, dragging people to and from. And never do we hear someone say, it's amazing. Like, I get to sit in the stands 2 to 3 hours every night, 5 nights a week. And it's incredible. Like, I'm just getting to see them grow up right in front of my eyes. No, they're like, I'm a freaking taxi driver for my kids and they don't even love me. Like, they talk crap about me and they yell at me when they get home and they're always tired and hormonal and ticked off and blah, blah, blah. And we're like, well, maybe you should separate from that a little bit. So just be very careful with your kids' activities as well as your own.
We were on the point, yes, of going to war with distractions. And we were saying that activities are one of them. So whatever that looks like for you, I think you got to check. Our challenge to you tonight, honestly, would be that you spend some time this week, like maybe start a note in your phone that says that you just title distractions. And every time something happens when you feel like, man, I am distracted, like I am off purpose, like I am not moving forward. We always say if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards.
Yeah.
So everything that we do and everything we want our kids doing, we want them to be forward moving. We believe that that's how God's asked us to live. So anytime this week that you're going through the motions of life and you're like, okay, this person, maybe they're a distraction. This activity, maybe it's a distraction. This stuff, maybe it's a distraction, right? The excessive work might be a distraction. The lack of boundaries might be a distraction. Because if we have good work to do in this world, if we have good work to do that's going to impact other people, you better believe that the enemy's going to try to get you distracted. That he's going to try to keep you too busy to do it. And if we are not on guard, if we do not open our eyes to see what is actually causing the distractions in our life, we're never going to get to the place that we're trying to go. We're never going to reach the goal. We're never going to reach the dream, because we're going to be constantly distracted by the wrong people, by the wrong things, by the wrong stuff, by the wrong activities, right? So that would be my encouragement to you. This week, spend some time actually taking a check, like a checkpoint of where are the distractions. Yeah. Make a note on your phone. Tell Siri to add it to your list. Did you know you can do that? Mm-mm. You can say, Siri, start me a note called distractions. Oh. Siri, add to note titled distractions. And she'll say, what do you want me to add to it? And you can say, the crap on the living room floor.
Or my wife not putting a bra on until noon.
Oh, such a distraction.
That's a good distraction, though, but still. Like, babe, I'm trying to get work done. You need to get out of here.
Yeah. Okay, so any last words?
No, I just want to say there were actually some, like, mad faces when I was saying what I was saying earlier. And I'm not going to apologize for what I said, but do understand that we don't say any of this out of judgment or anything else. Like, we just live in a world where there's some expectations sometimes put on us as parents, as spouses, as churchgoers, whatever it might be, that aren't necessarily what we're supposed to be doing. So those things in your life that you don't truly love doing, or where you don't feel like you're really living in that calling. Someone did say something. Someone said, my husband says I baby my son, and then Jennifer says I do also to a point, but I will help support them and make them use their backbone to help find it. And I think that's good. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. We are supposed to support our children. We're supposed to support our spouses. I just think everything that we do with our kids, we need to mirror against that. Like, for us, the priorities of, are we putting God first? Are we putting our spouse second? Are we putting our kids third? And then everything else, work, serving, ministry, all of those things to us come forth after those three things. And when you're properly measuring where you're spending your time, where you're spending your money, where you're putting your effort against whatever the priority list looks like in your life, as long as those look according to the priorities, I think you're doing a great job. When they get totally out of whack, that's when you have to do a self-check and figure out how you can get them back in line.
I'm just making
I thought you were about to boom.
David said, for sure, we also create distractions when we are uncomfortable being still. And I think that is 100% true. And I know people who can never be still because they're not comfortable.
In their own skin.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or like and it really, when you look at the Enneagram, sometimes the helpers are not comfortable dealing with their own thoughts.
Right.
And so they constantly create distractions.
Right.
It's such a good point though. And like,
but they get so good at making those distractions sound legitimate.
Yeah. And sound purposeful.
Yeah. She's guilty of this sometimes. This one.
That's why I need Sabbath in my life.
She gets really snappy sometimes if I question something she's doing, even though sometimes I just question it in a way to make sure that she's doing the right thing. But for example, I'll walk in and say, babe, what are you doing? She's like, well, I'm doing this thing for our team page. I'm like, okay, is that like, what are you doing? She's like, I've been working on this for 2 hours. Don't come in here and act like I'm not doing it. And I'm like, whoa, I was just asking because I want to make sure it's like lining up with what we're supposed to do. And she's like, well, it is. And I'm like, hey. I'm for you. We're on the same team. Like and then she usually senses it and goes, okay, I'm sorry. Yes. So here's what I'm doing and why. But she is one that sometimes I have to, and sometimes she does really good. She gut checks and she's like, I don't need to be doing this right now. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But
that is such a hard skill to learn.
Yeah.
Like to actually evaluate, even in work for me to actually really do that self-check. That's why a lot when we talk business on our other training page, we talk so much about working smarter. And that has to do with asking yourself the question all the time, is there a faster way, a better way, a more efficient way, a more profitable way? And for me, I would sometimes just like to do the comfortable way, the thing I've done forever, but it's not necessarily the best way, or it's not the way I need to be spending my time. And that's so hard to get away from. And it's so hard to retrain your brain. Is this what I actually need to be doing in all areas of your life? So anyways.
Now, Jennifer said something about one God, two family, which family's husband and children, and then furry ones are second. Here's all I would say to that, Jennifer. Be very careful about putting your children on the same level as your spouse. The best thing in the world, when I heard this advice, I was like, oh, it makes so much sense when you say it real fast like that. But the best advice I ever heard about it was you have to mirror with your spouse what you want your children to look for in a spouse. And I don't want my sons looking for a wife that spends more time and more energy and more of her emotional margin on her children than she does on her spouse. Now, again, in the world we live in, this is a foreign concept in a lot of ways. Like they say, well, you have to be there to all your kids' stuff, and you have to do this, and you have to do that. We're gone a lot, and it causes a lot of conversation with our kids on why we're gone. We're gone for ministry stuff, we're gone for business stuff, and we're gone for just mommy and daddy time. We have a date night every Friday night. And there's seasons of our life where we're gone sometimes 2 weekends out of a month as well. And then there's other seasons where we might be gone 10 days out of a month, but constantly having that communication with our children as to, especially my 9 and 11-year-old, like, baby, the reason that I go away with your mom is because I love her so much that I want to be the best husband I can to her so that she can be the best mom to you. And then I can be the best dad to you. And then we sit down and explain why we have to spend so much time together. And so, Jennifer's saying, no, the hubby is first. Okay, that's good. And it's not, and I'm not just speaking to you. I mean, we have conversations with people constantly that say they're putting their husband first, but really when you look at where they're spending their time, we talked to someone the other day that they said, I can't remember the last time my husband and I went to bed at the same time because I'm running around with kids and then he gets home and then I'm still wound up and he goes to bed and I don't want to go to bed. So then I just get work done. And although so many people's schedules are different, you have to try to prioritize time with your spouse, whether it's in the evenings, in the mornings, in the afternoons, on the weekends, whatever it is. But that has to be something that's a big deal because I want my children to see that I love this woman so much and so recklessly that because I love her so much, it makes her a better wife. It makes me a better husband, which makes us better parents and a better team.
Yeah.
And so I truly don't believe that I can be the best dad to my kids that I can be if I'm not investing in her first before I invest in them.
Hey, our computer's about to die.
Oh, yeah, it is.
we're gonna do this week. We're gonna create a distractions list on our phone, and then we're not gonna share it with y'all necessarily, but with each other.
We might.
We
share some of
might,
it.
but it might not be relevant. But
we won't mention any of your names. But
even just to share it with each other, to say these are the things this week that when I really started to think about it, felt like a distraction to me, and I want to be accountable to that, and I want to change some things and have those conversations. So I'm going to challenge you to do the same thing. Make a list of the distractions. Also, though, if you know somebody that you think, man, I think this person would totally love this talk or this message, send it their way. That might be how you find your people.
Maybe.
You know? It's part of how we're finding our people, because if you understand, like if you get what we're saying and we're on the same page, then you're our people.
Well, it's funny because as she was saying, if you know somebody that might need this, that's a hard thing to tell someone, right? Like, hey, I noticed you need a little personal development, so I'm going to send you this thing. No, but
you seem very distracted.
Right. But, and then you're like, no, over here. Okay, yeah. So you need, there it is. Okay, over here. But what we have found, some of the things that we find the most interesting, or a podcast we listen to, or a book we read that really like helps develop us and change us, when you start to recommend it to people, usually the people that are the most self-aware and the most able to be open to criticism or maybe even just improvement that they don't know that they need, those are the people I want to be around. I want to be around the people that are willing to take a leap or willing to take a step toward improving, as opposed to the people that think they're already good enough and they don't need it. Because those are usually the people that might need it the most. But if they're not willing to go there yet, those aren't the people I want to be around. And so we talk, honestly, when she said earlier about how we've ostracized our people, there's certain groups of people that we used to hang around with all the time. But as we started to really dive into more of this stuff and really just read books and have good conversation and study our Bibles and do all of this different stuff, some of those people not put labels on us, but would say, why are you doing that? Why are you doing this? And why are you doing that? And because of that, it just allows us to have that conversation. Like they're not there yet. And that's okay. But we want to be around people that are either there or that are maybe even a step ahead of us. The people that can recommend something to us that we've never read and we can pour through it and be
absolutely.
like, oh my gosh, that was incredible.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of people. So when you are recommending something like this, the people that are like, I'm not distracted, I don't need that, then
we're all distracted.
Maybe figure out if that's who you need to be around, So, but that's just something that we do. People that are open-handed to, getting better in certain areas, those are the kind of people that are growing and the kind of people that I want to grow with.
It's a true story.
But we love you guys. Literally, we might have 10 seconds left on our computer.
So next week, we're going to talk about internal distractions.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I walked you through all this today. Don't worry, guys.
I know. I forgot for a second. Okay.
Yeah. So today was external. So next week, we're going to talk about internal. It's a totally kind of different set of distractions, but it is really important this week that you do some reflection on your external distractions and start trying to clean some of those up, or just at least become aware of them. That will lead us into next week on internal distractions.
Hey, thanks for joining us at our table. We love y'all. Hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
See you guys. Thanks for being here.
Hold on.
Gotta log off all the stuff.